everybody. Welcome to another episode of Ask an Assistant, the podcast for executive assistants and the people that love us. I'm your host, Jess Lindgren. Let's get to work. Today's question comes from esteemed colleague Liz, who asks, "Hey Jess, I've been asked to write an employee handbook for my company. Isn't this something HR would normally do? My company is small, so there is no HR department to speak of, but it doesn't seem like something I should be handling myself. Can you point me in the right direction?" Liz, thank you ever so much for your question. For anybody out there listening, I would love to hear all of your burning questions, handbooks, employee issues, and otherwise. Lay them on me at askanassistant.com. But back to Liz's question, I would love to share some thoughts on employee handbooks. In the course of researching for this episode, I actually found that my present full-time job's handbook could use a refresh. We have some outdated language in there. We have the company is based in the wrong state in our present employee handbook. So definitely some company changes have happened since the employee handbook was written in 2019. And just one of those things to add to my annual to-do list, in addition to my roughly quarterly list of things. I've touched on some roughly quarterly things in previous episodes, but I'm going to definitely be compiling those and making an annual list as well. And checking over the employee handbook and just making sure, have there been any major personnel changes? Have there been any company acquisitions, mergers, any sales of any goods or corporations or anything? My executive is very famously on the record for having started and purchased and sold in varying degrees many different companies, projects, entities over the years. And that kind of stuff definitely affects what's in your employee handbook. So that's where I'm at. A few kind of high-level thoughts. Gusto or a similar people platform, depending on your company, you might have something like Paychecks. You might have something a little more new, like a Squarespace. Or is it Square? It's Square. The payment processor has its own little suite of people platform tools. There's things out there like LegalZoom. You might have an internal proprietary system, but something like that gives you a really good place to start. An HR department is definitely where I feel like this should go. And then I also believe that it's very important, after the human resources professional in your life hands the employee handbook off to the legal professional in your life, whether that's in-house counsel or someone you contract for a one-off project. So those are kind of my high-level thoughts. Like I said, going back to the three things in order, your people platform, the thing that handles your back of house HR operations. I've definitely worked in many different environments over the years, and the one that I'm working in right now is called Gusto. It's a really great people platform that handles payroll. It handles a lot of tax and other documentation compliance that we need, especially as a company that has employees in two separate states. The company is presently based in California. I am the sole employee living in the state of New York. But just having that back of house people platform, since we are a very small company, is really great. You know, we can pay, you can, depending on your company's needs, if you have an HR department, maybe you don't need to pay for the HR support. But being a small company that needs HR support, we pay for the upgraded priority support. So I have access to people at Gusto through email, live chat, and phone whenever I need somebody. I've been working within this platform since 2019. It's super user-friendly. They have really timely responses. Like, I really do my best not to call during like tax season or right at the end of the year. But I've been very lucky over the years. Every time I've needed to call or email, I've always gotten a very quick turnaround, very quick response. I don't think on a phone call I've waited more than like 5 minutes for somebody. And I'm pretty sure they have the feature to, press 1 and somebody will call you back kind of thing. So people platforms are a great place to start. They have templates, or they have, they point you in the right direction to get it going. Like I touched on earlier, I discovered researching this episode that our employee handbook definitely needs a refresh. And I sent him an email because I was like, this isn't urgent. I'm coming to this on a Friday. I don't really want to deal with this over the weekend. So just sent him an email, and that's my Friday, so it was technically a Thursday. But sent an email, and within 48 hours received an email response with all the details of what I needed to do to get the handbook updated. And go from there. And it's just great having those resources in your corner. In a bigger, more robust company structure, an HR department, I think, ought to be tasked with something like this. I think it's something where human resources professionals are given specific training about what kinds of things need to be covered. This really is tough depending on the size of your company. Like, I've had roles where HR tasks were definitely part of my job, including my current role, and other roles where the company had a very robust, like, HR coordinator, HR assistant, all the way up through HR specialist, case managers, directors, VPs, all that kind of stuff. So just depends on the company where you're at, depends on the structure, depends on the size. In my present role, I definitely handle a lot of HR related things, but I escalate a lot to the Gusto support team, and sometimes even to our accountant and or our lawyer whenever appropriate. So I definitely do handle some of the tasks myself, but I also know when the task makes sense to me, to where I feel confident handling it, where Gusto really lays things out and makes it easy for me to understand and complete. A lot of times it's just, hey, review this document. Our team already gave it the go ahead. We're looking for a company representative to rubber stamp it and say it's fine. Definitely read things before you rubber stamp or sign anything. But so it's just really nice to kind of have that chain of command, even in a small organization like mine, to be able to say, okay, I feel good about taking care of this. I feel like I need to bring this to my executive's attention to get his sign off, or I need to talk with someone at Gusto on the phone. I need to talk with my lawyer. I need to talk with my accountant. So I kind of consider myself more of like an HR focused project manager when the task pops up and is appropriate. I do not consider myself an actual HR professional, but I definitely have some crossover just being in a very small organization like mine. And then the last of those three areas that I really believe it's important to get legal eyes on a document like an employee handbook, especially when you're dealing with it doesn't matter, especially. It just get legal eyes on top of this. Doesn't matter if you're a company of one and it's just you, or a company of 10,000 people spread across cities, states, countries, continents. Like, just get the legal professionals to sign off. Kind of like the HR structure being different in every company, your legal structure is going to be very different. I've worked at companies where we had a law firm on the floor below us. And so just anytime we needed some assistance, we could just kind of had a retainer, like, hey, stick it on our tab and we'll settle up with you at the end of the month. And then places where we had like an in-house counsel department, not even just one in-house counselor, one lawyer, a department of several lawyers. And this was a company where, again, you're across cities, states, countries, continents. It's good to have legal professionals that know the local laws for wherever it is that you're conducting business. I see people all the time in like networking groups, EA groups, on LinkedIn pages, whatever, asking for templates to work from. It is totally, totally fine to start with a template. But this is definitely something where your company needs to spend some money. There are provisions often laid out in employee handbooks for hiring, firing, travel, like healthcare options, details of coverage. Those are things that are often covered in employee handbooks, and could land you in some really serious legal hot water if not properly written into your employee handbook. A piece of punctuation that's out of place, a sentence worded the wrong way. This is totally anecdotal, but and not employee handbook related necessarily, more like legal sharpness related, but like somebody said something in their user agreement about being given lifetime access to something and then didn't make a provision for, well, is it the lifetime of the customer? Is it the lifetime of the product? Is it the lifetime of the business? You need to be really careful. You could end up in some very interesting legal waters if things aren't written out explicitly, gone over with a fine-tooth comb by the human resources professionals and or the legal professionals in your life. Yeah, so those are just kind of the high level bits of it. I did go to the source, the Society for Human Resource Management, SHRM. Perhaps you've seen that acronym floating around the internet a time or two, or around your office, who knows. But just went to their website to see what they have to say about employee handbooks. And I will quote from their website. An employee handbook can be a valuable communication resource for both the employer and the employee. It provides guidance and information related to the organization's history, mission, values, policies, procedures, and benefits in a written format. It is also viewed as a means of protecting the employer against discrimination or unfair treatment claims. It is an easily accessible guide to the company's policies and practices, as well as an overview of the expectations of management. In contrast, a policy is a written statement that reflects the employer's standards and objectives relating to various employee activities and employment-related matters. Employers should require every employee to provide a written acknowledgement of having received the handbook. The acknowledgement should be saved in an employee's personnel file as a way for the organization to establish that the employee was made aware of the policies. By no means should the handbook be construed as an employment agreement, which may affect the employment at will status. It is imperative to have the handbook reviewed by legal counsel. End quote. So there you have it, folks. Get the handbook full of company policies and procedures in writing. Get receipt of the handbook acknowledgement from every employee so that you have the grounds to take action when, Joe from sales is going over his $75 per diem. And get the legal professional in your life to give it the go-ahead before you give it out to anyone, even yourself as the company owner. So, Liz, I hope that helps you set out on the right track. Definitely ask your company for resources. Feel free to pull from templates that you find somewhere online. If you have access to legal counsel, start with them first. Maybe they have a preferred resource library, or if you have someone who has some HR experience. You just never know where someone came from before they landed at your organization. Tap resources in your network and definitely get the higher ups at your company to give you a budget to do this, because you're going to need some second, third, fourth sets of eyeballs on it before you create it and put the final seal of approval on it. To anybody out there listening, please keep your questions coming at askanassistant.com. Please keep in mind that I firmly believe the only stupid question is the one that you don't ask. Until next week, take care.